The Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, episode number 312. On deck tonight, Brian's not with us tonight. He had calling hours for the sheriff's deputy tonight that he was very close friends with. And Ben was very close with him as well, and we lost him just 10 days before he was scheduled for his retirement last week. So Brian's not with us tonight. We got that news a little bit late. I know Brian wanted to be here tonight to talk a little bit more about Capital City Carnage and everything that happened out there in Topeka at the Stormont Vale Event Center. What an event it was, front to back. I really enjoyed being out there. I saw a lot of banter on Facebook about everything that happened in regard to the Demolition Derby out there. We've got a bunch of results to leaf through here. We're going to be talking with a couple of our winners from out there, Justin and Steven, waiting in the wings here with the Team Kansas Outlaws. We're also going to be talking with Jerrid Fisher as well. We reached out to Jeff McGee and Isaac Lehman, but I didn't hear back from them. Otherwise, we would have tried to have them on as well. So again, just to give you the quick rundown in case you missed it, Justin Steven picking up the win in the limited Weld side of things, and it was Jeff McGee and Isaac Lehman winning the two-man extreme class, and that was a barn burner of a feature. Logan Anderson, part of that youth movement, picking up the win in the front-wheel drive hobo class, and Chicken Man, Justin Montgomery, coming away with the win in the Weld division. The Weld division got a little bit interesting as well. I don't know if anybody knew about that. Some information coming to us here a little late just as the show started that some of those Weld class cars were tampered with, plug wires, screws loosened and stuff like that, and we just really don't need that at this level. I mean, it would be really helpful if that just would go away. It's unfortunate that that kind of thing leaves a little bit of a mar or a black eye on such an outstanding performance for the Weld cars. Nonetheless, I don't think that anybody had any long-term adverse effects. Most everything was caught. As far as I know, something they were still trying to put a couple feelers out there on as well. Early in the day, Saturday, and all our Derby Parts Weld Compacts, Jerrid Fisher winning that one, and then Jacob Prusman winning the Street Stock Weld class presented by Derby Tees. Those are a couple drivers that we're going to be looking to catch up with here as we wrap up our coverage here next week when Brian does get back. When we get back on a little bit more of a regular schedule, we'll try and catch up with some of them, and also we'll get a recap on the Bluegrass Bash, which I believe that is the next event. Bluegrass Bash in Louisville, March the 21st, coming up here soon. We're going to be catching up with Mark Elliott about that as well going forward. So a little bit of a programming note as we look ahead of things. Right here now, though, we're going to turn our attention to, let's get Facebook rolling here, because we're going to try and bring this to everybody online as well, and we're going to get Justin on the phone here. Justin, man, how are you?
Good, how are you?
We're doing okay. Take me through what your weekend and what your travels home have been like. I mean, it's got to be pretty exciting for you coming home with a win this big on home turf in front of a lot of your fans.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I didn't have to travel too far, so that was nice. I'm only about an hour and a half from Topeka.
Right.
So it was a nice, quick weekend.
Tell me what it's like now to come away with a win like this in Topeka. You've run out there a bunch of times, and we've talked about a handful of teams that have been right there on the edge of doing great things at Blizzard Bash. Johnson Wrecking Crew, a couple bounces, they could have been a feature winner last year. WRP, guys that a couple good bounces, they're going to be right there in the mix of it. Kansas Outlaws, it's a group that's kind of the same way. You guys are right there on the edge of knocking on that breakthrough. And now here you are in victory lane. What's this mean to you guys, for you, for being a hometown boy and being somebody who's been right there on the edge of things with the team?
Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, we've had bad luck here, not terrible luck, but been close to winning, and we've had cars that could win, but just haven't been able to pull through with the win. And it definitely makes it easier to keep on going.
Yeah, I can believe that. Some of the conversations we've had with Team Calisota style, even the crazy Iowans. It's that little nugget of success somewhere in the equation does help make it a little bit easier to swallow the tougher pills and keep pressing on. So once you get one, it seems like the next one's fall in line. Is this setting the stage for any type of momentum, or is it still way too early to even think about that?
I'd like to say I hope it does, but I'd say it's a little early to say that. I mean, Bash it's a long ways out still.
Yeah, it sure is. The $10,000 though, that should sure help get the team ready, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Take me through your Capital City Carnage weekend. Through the qualifying heats, the heat draws. There was a wild card that was thrown out there on the table that if the heat was solid and it was strong, 4 cars go. If the pace slowed down too much, only 3 cars were going to qualify. Only one of those heats was subject to that. It was one of the 2-man classes. And then after that, you had to work your way through a very long, very tough, very stacked feature.
Yeah, they threw in that 3 or 4 car swing, and I didn't think we'd have to worry about that in our heat with the heat draw we got. And I knew it was going to be a pretty fast heat. So I was pretty sure they were going to take 4. I didn't quite know how it was going to work out, and with the heat, so I just kind of went out there and waited to see what was going on. And Rob, he never really messed with me, and I had both demo wagons, and fought with them a little, and we were able to come out of the heat still pretty good, and into the feature, and didn't have a lot of work to do in the feature and we just kind of try to play it smart and keep the tires on it and try and make it to the end.
Your heat was heat number 1, Limited Weld Heat 1, which included Brandon Carpenter, Eric Diemel, David Diemel, Chance Langford, and then you had Rob Hewer and Lane Hall out there as well. And Teddy Papadopoulos was scheduled to be out there. He had a wheel issue coming out there, so he pulled the car on there on 3 wheels, broke the stick off right away just to get through the car, qualified for the consolation round. After they made those repairs, he ultimately made it to the feature as well. Seeing that exchange, did that change any of your game plan or strategy for the heat?
Not really. I wasn't too sure what exactly we were going to go on. It changed a little because I figured there was going to be 4, and I felt kind of like the odd man out, but it worked out.
When things got settled down from there, again, you didn't have a whole lot in terms of fixing to do. We anticipated that the feature was going to break down and being a bit of a team show. You saw all 4 of the Johnson Wrecking Crew cars out there. You had 3 Wisconsin cars, and you had 3 of the Missouri cars with Team Caddy Nation, Rob Hewer, Trey Hewer, and then Teddy Papadopoulos out there. It seemed that if things went real crazy at the get-go, anybody that was able to sort of stay out of the crosshairs and keep their nose clean had a shot at winning it. And as things played out, some of those cars ended up punching themselves out early and took damage that they didn't necessarily want to. Was there ever a point in that feature where as things were playing out the way that they did, where you looked around and thought to yourself, wow, I got a shot at winning this thing?
I never at that point thought that. I know there was a lot of good drivers out there, and they could drive a hurt car all the way to the end.
Sure.
So it really never crossed my mind. I wanted to focus on keeping the steering, and I felt if I kept the steering on it, I could be at the end for sure. Right.
Take me through the final moments. You had a heck of a battle in the waning moments, and you had a couple of laboring cars to contend with, but then you had some struggles of your own as well. It ended up being Chris Collins in second place, Zach Johnson, last year's runner-up, coming home in third place. Sean Vrana had a great run there for let's see, that would be fourth. And then Eric Diemel running down to fifth. Take me through what the last few minutes were like inside the cockpit. I mean, at that point, you got to have the adrenaline dump. You're out of energy. You're dehydrated, hot, looking for any opportunity, and you're surrounded by drivers who aren't giving you really much of anything to shoot at, so to say. You know, everything was just pretty beat up, and everybody was hoping to catch a lucky break.
Yeah, it was getting very long, and I was kind of starting to get impatient, and motor was starting to get hot, and it kept wanting to die, and luckily it kept firing. Wouldn't take too long to fire up.
What engine did you have in it?
It's a Scott Graup.
Okay.
But the battle, Chris, he still had steering, but had that flat tire. Mm-hmm. So I knew he was definitely probably going to be the one that if it was to come down to us, he'd be the one that would. And then it kept Eric. He went out eventually, and then Sean and Zach, they didn't have steering, couldn't really move too well, and me and Chris went down there to the end, and I thought that's when we were going to start duking it out with each other, and we ended up having to go back down there and work on the other two for a while, and it was a heck of a battle with Chris there at the end with both our engines dying and having to try to get them restarted, and it was definitely a lot of fun.
You had pretty good mobility until late in the going, and I don't think you ever fully lost steering, right?
No, I had, as far as I could tell, I had all the steering I started with.
A couple times in the feature, there was the dogfight with that group of four, and you just kind of drove away from all of that and then came back to it. Were you trying to let the engine cool down? Was that a conscious decision, or just kind of surveying who was left?
Yeah, I was definitely trying to get some air through that radiator, and just try to get away. And I was kind of hoping maybe I could get a little room away from them, and if they made a mistake and left a good shot open, I could take it. But they never did, and they're definitely good drivers, and none of them made a mistake.
There was a shot that was delivered in the middle of the track where a bumper got underneath the radiator on Colin's machine. And I don't know if it took the bottom of the radiator out or if it unhooked the hose. But all the water came out of that right now. It just emptied right in the middle of the track. And while the show was on, we made the comment that as the back of Eric's wagon continued to rotate over, he had to be careful about getting there because he's having trouble with traction as it was. If he got in some of that area where it became slimy, he wasn't going to be able to navigate out of that easily without getting a little bit of help. And ultimately, he ended up in that spot, and the back end had come over so far where I don't even know if the back wheels were touching the ground anymore. That wagon had moved a little bit in the back. Was there with the way that those wagons were holding up and as how hard that Eric and David, who's a former winner in his own right, were driving, was there a sense of relief when you saw that wagon take the stick down?
Yeah, for sure. The back of them wagons, they're very dangerous on steering parts, so you had to watch out for them. They definitely changed the game real quick if you weren't careful.
That being said, this was sort of on paper reading like it was going to be an old iron show. We saw a lot of good old iron show up for this. And now for the second year in a row, a new style has won. And the year prior to that, Justin Montgomery took second place in a new style. John Muse winning last year. It's not a old iron show. Or are we reading into a misconception? Is there something special about the Vic? Why run the Ford?
I chose it. I ran the one at Bash, and I was very happy with it. I was able to get around better, I felt like, than an old iron. I've ran an old iron up there several times, and I was real happy with the Bash ride, and it was easy to pull the stuff out and go straight into another one.
Sure.
I went more for the mobility of that feature. I kind of felt like it was going to be a fast feature at the start, how it played out, and it eventually slowed down, and that's how it played out.
Right. I mean, there was some I guess some online discontent. Excuse me. Some online discontent about the pace, more about the two-man extreme feature than the limited weld so much. But I thought that the pace at the outset was very good, and on paper it was very difficult to pick a winner. Even when we got down to the final 7 or 8 cars, it's not like you could say single one guy out and say, yeah, this guy is dominant, he's definitely going to win. And especially once we got down in the last 4 or 5, it was hard to pick. But on the limited weld side of things, these cars were a little bit harder. The two-man cars, they were softer, so later in the going, any hit was doing collateral damage. You had to be careful with your shot choice and make sure that you didn't try to land a kill shot and then inadvertently take yourself out. Limited weld cars were a little bit more forgiving. They still weren't Blizzard Bash hard, but they were pretty reasonable. When you start looking at the cars laboring around you, you start seeing the steam coming out, you see flat tires and everything like that. Is it tough to pull back on the reins and stay in that smart driver mode and not try to go and deliver the kill shots at the end of the thing and take yourself out?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult for me. They were all being smart. They didn't have steering or flat tires, or they all had a problem, and they were making their hits, and I was able to get room. And there was a couple times I felt like I could have made a hit, but it wasn't enough of a good hit for me to justify to use up my car. And
right.
So yeah, I had to pull back and try and be smart about it. I wanted to definitely pick my shots if I had to start using it real hard.
Is the Crown Vic something that is going to be a go-to for you now after this? I mean, is there still the temptation to find old iron for the fall show, or have you seen enough out of the Crown Vic to where you can put more eggs in that basket?
Right now I'm probably leaning to the Crown Vic for Blizzard Bash.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see how it plays out. It'll probably be a Vic for Bash for me.
Were you guys at the rules meeting where the news broke about the teams?
About the what?
About the Blizzard Bash teams, some of the new rules and discussion about card choices for the teams. Do you hear anything about that this weekend?
I don't think I did.
Well, as I understand, there was a meeting of some sort, and perhaps, at least on paper right now, Blizzard Bash teams are going to be allowed 103 and newer, a Suicide Lincoln, and 1 Imperial. So knowing that, does that change anything? Obviously, we're catching you off guard if you're just coming across that information.
Yeah, I haven't built either one of them, but that it might have a little bit of effect on car choice. But
right. I still think that, I know you can put the big motors in the Imperials and stuff now, and you're going to be able to put the front end components and things on them. I still don't know if that's the car of choice, and I'm still not fully sold on the idea. That was information that we came across, but we'll have to see as that evolves. I seem to remember a couple years back where there was some discussion that the Imperials might be welcomed into Blizzard Bash, but that was ultimately put back on the shelf, and I don't think it came to pass. So we'll have to see with this one where it goes. But I still think in terms of mobility and stuff that the Crown Vics are going to have the advantage in terms of that, and then when you look at the wagons, what everybody's been able to do with those in terms of those rails sticking out and just knocking steering out like crazy, those are probably going to be the lead 2 cars of choice right there with the Cadillacs and some of the mid-70s GMs. It just seems like that's the wheelhouse for the wheelhouse cars for what the rules are, both on the limited weld side of things and what you see at Blizzard Bash.
Yeah, definitely.
How'd you get into Demolition Derby anyway? I mean, you're a guy that we've seen run a bunch of different times out there in our trips to Kansas, and like you said, you're sort of local to it, only an hour and a half away. How'd you end up getting into it?
I started when I was 16. My dad, he had started when he was 20, and now he's been derbying for 40 years straight now.
Wow.
And I have 2 cousins. They started when they were 15, and they're in their 30s now, so it's just kind of a family sport.
That's awesome. In terms of your schedule, first let's talk about your dad. What's your dad's schedule going to be like this year for he's 40 straight years? How many shows is he going to run this year?
We're not too sure. He goes in for hip surgery next week, so
okay. Well,
so he might have to slow it down this year, but he has a different driving style than I do. They call him Crazy Pete, so he's definitely fun to watch.
Rob here is tuning in. This is those cars are for mods, which is interesting. And Jesse Hoffmeister, he's checking in and listening in, so that's good. Hi to all those guys. Hi to everybody that's tuning in on Facebook as well. What about your schedule? How busy are you going to be?
Not too busy. I know of one other county fair show I'm going to run this summer, and Blizzard Bash.
Yeah. We heard a handful of that out there with a bunch of different drivers that are planning on running in the fall. And they're running 1 or 2 times through the course of the summer just basically to make sure that they have the rust knocked off and they can test out the stuff they want to try, but they're backing down the schedule quite a bit just because the build is so intensive.
Yeah, this is the first build I have ever been done a week early. So,
and when you were
normally,
done earlier, were you sitting around thinking about what you may have forgotten?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was kind of nervous. I didn't care for it. I liked it, but it was definitely different.
Yeah, that getting done early thing's for the birds, huh?
Yeah.
Anybody that you want to make mention of, or that helped make sure that you got to the track, or that you could credit with helping make this win happen?
Our Blizzard Bash teammates, Doug, Clint, and Brandon, my dad, and everyone else that stopped by and gave us a hand, and all the people that congratulated me over the past couple of days. So it means a lot to me. So,
where's the car now?
It is sitting in my dad's garage. I unloaded it off the trailer here about an hour and a half ago.
Park that out front. Let all the neighbors know what $10,000 looks like.
Yep.
Well, Justin, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. I look forward to seeing you again in November. We wish your dad the best, speedy recovery. Hope everything goes smooth with the hip surgery and that he can get back in the car. Actually, real quick, what's your dad think of where Demolition Derby is now? I mean, a 40-year career, that he's seen a lot, and now he's see these mod cars. What's he think of all that?
When he looks at the mod cars, he just shakes his head, and he just thinks they're nuts.
Well, he's right. They're crazy. But but we love them all the same, man. Justin, congratulations on the win. Nice job, and we look forward to seeing you again in the fall. Keep us posted as the summer goes if you get into more shows.
All right, I will.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Yep, you too.
Bye now. There goes Justin Steven coming away with the win there in the limited weld feature. Once again, Chris Collins, second place, Zach Johnson, Sean Vrana, Eric Diemel, running back through the top 5. Man, I can't shake this cough. Let's see. Tough break. Jason Gizmore says, long hair, don't care. We appreciate everybody that was tuning in on Facebook for the look-in. We're going to go ahead and wrap that up here momentarily. And again, thanks a lot for tuning into that. We're going to shift gears and get Jerrid Fisher on the phone to talk a little bit about his run in the compact side of things. A couple guys that we haven't had on the show, catching up with them this evening, so that's always fun. Get some new names out there. I mean, the show front to back, we were hearing all sorts of new names. The winners of the 2-man class, I think they were under 18 years old. Hey, Jerrid. And I believe Logan, who won the stock compact, the front wheel drive hobo class, he was 16 or 17 years old. So we just talk about that's the youth that's the future of the sport is in the youth, and we got to see some of that this weekend. We got Jerrid Fisher on the line now. Jerrid, man, thanks for coming on the show. Congratulations. Oh, no, we're not going to play this game again, are we? Jerrid, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought we were going to start doing that same issue that we had with Nate last week, and you weren't going to be able to hear me.
No, we're all good.
Awesome. congratulations on the win, man. Take me through it. That didn't look like it was an easy one to come away with.
No, it's never easy. And to be fair, there's a lot of luck in it.
Again, we're going to be signing off on Facebook. We appreciate everybody tuning in there. If you want to see the whole thing, jump on the Crash Course page, follow the YouTube links. You can find it out there. And also, of course, jump on DerbyNation.tv. Buy the package. You can go back through and watch the whole thing in case you missed anything. You can catch up on all the heats and features that we're talking about here tonight, and we're going to be talking about again next week. What was going through your mind there for the last little bit of it? When it came down to you and Nate was there and Tyler TJ Irvin was there and you had Mike Koch still in the mix. It was a very, very difficult one to say, hey, that's the guy right there that's going to win this one.
Yeah, basically when I was in the car, looking back at it, I just didn't want to lose to Nate, so it was all good.
Take me through what that feature was like. We weren't really sure what we were going to get. Everybody came off the line and was at 9,000 RPM right away and drove very, very hard with those cars.
Yeah. I'll just say for us and being the rear-wheel drives, I mean, we don't have the mobility that those front-wheel drive cars do. It's kind of hard to keep pace with them. I was lucky enough that I didn't take any bad shots, and I kept steering throughout the whole thing. So really, it was just backing up, finding my next shot, and taking it.
How susceptible is the steering on those Camaros that you guys had to being knocked out? Is it as, I don't know, is it as fragile or finicky as what you would see on a new style Ford? Is a little bit more trustworthy like what you see in the mid-70s GMs?
I think they're fairly reliable for the most part. I mean, we have lost steering, and I'm not saying that we never will lose steering, but it's just like anything. If you take a bad shot, you're prone to losing it.
Sure. Do you think that the Camaros have an advantage at this point, looking at the way you guys were able to win back last spring with Nate coming up with a win, and then you guys going 1-2 again with the same cars this year?
I personally don't believe we have an advantage. I mean, like I said, the small cars, they have the mobility. Mm-hmm. Our cars just don't have the maneuverability, but I do believe that we have the better motor. It can last longer when it's hotter. So I mean, it's difficult. I do feel like we are the underdogs when we go out there, just because the numbers ain't on our side. And I mean, you look at it, how many rear-wheel drives do you really ever see out there?
Sure. The rear-wheel drives, excuse me, they certainly hold up to the abuse. Having the same cars from last year come back this year, and you guys were able to go 1-2. Nate having some ignition problems, and the car kept wanting to shut off on him. Were you aware of any of that stuff that was happening, as busy as the final 5 or so was when you were out there on track?
I didn't notice that one of Nate's tires was locked up. I kept basically going. I was trying to stay on the other end of the track and picking my shots as much as possible, but I didn't really want a full track, I guess, my teammates at that time.
Sure.
I wanted to. We talk about that individual event not being a team show. I mean, I'll tell anybody that it may not be a team show, but you're out there and you know people. It is partially a team show.
But is that any different? Excuse me. Is that any different than the county fair stuff that you run at home? I mean, lining up for the feature, don't you go through and figure out who you know, who you can run with, who you can trust, and do the politicking, whether the cars are painted the same or not?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I don't like politicking. I get along with, I feel like, everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's a derby, and you're going to get hit, and you're going you're going to lay some hits. I think county fairs are the exact same way. Do I think there's people out there that do more politicking than some? Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
But it's not my style.
Right. I was expecting. I was disappointed, I guess is a better way to say it, for Kevin Ullman in the 3K. He made that shot right there in the middle of the track, and the car never moved again. I think he had struck somebody so hard that it knocked one of the drive shafts out of the front end of his car, and there he sat, which was unfortunate. You figured he was going to be out there and factoring into the outcome of that one. But when you look at, you could go back through as far as the top 10, and like we were talking with Justin, it wasn't easy to look at the paper and say this is probably how this is gonna finish out. This is how the running order is gonna be. When you got down there and you saw steam and you saw locked up tires and you saw guys laboring and doors falling into the dirt and back ends rolled up into the windows, is it tough to, like we were talking with Justin a minute ago, is it tough to not go into kill mode and punch yourself out?
Definitely. I feel like when it starts to get down to the final couple people, I mean, I tend to drive a little bit more aggressive, and that will take me out at times. But it's kind of my driving style. I don't like to go out there and tap. I mean, I do, and I have, but I'd much rather go out there and take some bigger shots and receive those shots as well.
Was you're talking about the tapping and the patience and stuff, did the pace sustain the way that you thought that it was going to for the duration of that feature?
Yeah, I thought it was going to go pretty fast. I mean, being out there before, our event never seems to be really slow tapping. Really not a slow tapping derby at all. It's usually a little bit higher paced, I feel, especially being out there. But I expected it to be fairly quick.
Does this run change anything for you guys? Nate said that the wind didn't change anything for him, and whether it was real or perceived that you would get more attention as a defending champion. He comes home with second place, and you're in victory lane this time. Does your team still stay under the radar as effectively at this point going into the fall?
I honestly think that there'll probably be a little bit more of a target on our backs, but I mean that's what derbying is.
Right.
Is people are going to go for you, and people like a challenge, and so do we.
What are you guys going to do for the fall? Have you decided on cars?
I'm pretty sure it'll probably be pretty similar to what it was last year, 2 Camaros and 2 W bodies.
But you're not bringing these back again?
No. They don't allow the pre-rans back at Blizzard Bash. Right. I'll try to run them somewhere around home if I can put mine back together. So,
is there still something to put together on those?
Well, I couldn't drive mine off the track. I'm not sure what I exactly did. I still had steering and everything and start up, but I couldn't get it in the gear or like that. So I don't know if I fried a clutch or my transmission went right at the end there.
Wow, I would have thought that those things were just about spent at this point. I didn't think that there would still be anything left, but that's kind of cool to find out that there's a chance that we might see those things cruising around. Has the rule book at home started to open up enough to where you can run those through the summer? Can you still run the rear-wheel drive compacts at home?
There's a few shows, not a ton. We kind of have to drive to get these particular cars in. It really became a W body like favor those cars in my opinion. But we'll get them in here and there, I think, and that's if they're. I mean, we really haven't had a chance to get them on the lift and take a look at them and see exactly what the damage is either. So we may see them, we may not.
Right. The season for so many drivers sort of is dictated by the spring show and the fall show in Topeka, and the the county fair season has sort of been put a little bit more on the shelf. Some guys that we talk to, they still run 30 times because they want to stay as sharp as possible. Some want to run once or twice and focus on making sure that their build is as tight as can be so they're ready for the fall. What are you guys going to do? You're going to try and run a bunch of times this year?
Honestly, I think Nate, myself are kind of taking it a little bit more easy this year.
Yeah.
I didn't really plan on building anything fresh. If you ask Nate, he wants to start on his Blizzard Bash car next month.
his motor never stops, man.
Yeah, but I think we're slowing down a little bit. It gets to be a lot, and it takes a toll on ourselves and our family.
Sure.
I mean, doing that many derbies. We do have our derby family, but it takes a toll.
I understand that. Yeah, it absolutely does. How did you get into Demolition Derby and then subsequently get roped into the mod cars like what we're seeing you guys in and finding some success here in Topeka? How did you get started?
Way back in the day, just a friend and I decided it'd be fun to run at one of our local county shows, and I ran once, and I just never stopped. I was hooked. It just kind of drew me in. Around home, I ran a couple small cars, and then I got into the compact trucks, and that's everything's kind of stemmed off the compact trucks. We brought them down to Blizzard Bash when it was just a single event, and
Sure.
and we've been building off that ever since.
It's amazing to see the what those trucks were out there at Blizzard Bash. I mean, the frame of reference for Weld trucks was really set at Winter Slam the first year that we went out there, and then we saw some of the Weld trucks in Utah on some of our trips, and the Blizzard Bash trucks for a while there, they were right up there in that same ballpark. They're just monsters. They don't even look like trucks anymore. How does that compare, the hits that you take in those versus what you're seeing in the Weld compacts?
Well, I mean, for Blizzard Bash, they were running big trucks, and we run more compact trucks, so like your Bronco 2s, the Rangers, stuff of that sort. But back home, some of the people that we run against and run with, I mean, they're not afraid to lay down a hit, and I would personally rather take a hit from one of the small cars than our mini trucks. They're built pretty hard, and they don't move.
Well, Nate still has one from years ago, right?
Yep, that's correct. That thing's ugly.
All right, good. We got a little bit of clarification. Rob Hewer weighing in. I just want to make sure that we are clear on stuff from what we were talking about earlier with Justin. Is we were talking about the Suicide Lincolns, one Suicide Lincoln, 103 and newer, one Imperial allowed per team. That is on the mod teams, and they're talking about adding hump plates on sedans and taking away the distance on the tank protectors for some of the wagons. Those are some of the things that were addressed in that meeting that we alluded to earlier. Rob making sure that we stay honest there, so I don't want anybody to be confused that it's not top to bottom, that is specifically just for those mod teams at Blizzard Bash. So clarifying that real quick. Again, hanging out here with Jerrid Fisher, talking a little bit about his win and the compact side of things out there at Blizzard Bash. Anybody else that you wanted to make mention of or that helped make sure that the team could get out there this year?
I want to say, I guess my old man and then Jonathan, they help out a ton. I really couldn't do it without them. And then my wife and my kids for allowing me to do this. I mean, you can thank them every single day, but is that really enough at the end?
Too much is never enough. You should be thanking them every time. And I'm sure they're happier when you're bringing money back from these ventures instead of bringing back bent cars with broken wheels.
Oh, yeah. I know the little ones get pretty excited when we tell them we won. So.
That's awesome, man. Well, I sure do appreciate you coming on the show again. Congratulations to everybody. You got three cars in the top four. It's pretty good for the whole team, and you got to beat Nate, which is what you always wanted to do from the get-go, planning this thing out, so that was good.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you having me.
You bet, man. Congratulations. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
See you now. There goes Jerrid Fisher. We're going to change gears real quick here. We got a few minutes here on the back end of things, and I didn't get to ask him these questions down there because we didn't cross paths. Once the show ended, I had to go down and check in and finish a little bit of paperwork on our end and then get on our way back to the airport, and I made my flight by about 50 minutes coming home, which was pretty exciting. There's Jake Prusman. Jake, you good? All right. Did you have to work today, Jacob?
I'm just punching out.
You're insane. The motor never stops going for Jacob Prusman, and judging by the picture that you sent me through the course of Blizzard Bash, I was wondering if the motor was going to be running at all. Tell me a little bit about what happened before you got out there for that street stock weld feature.
It's no surprise I'm last minute. We
Always.
didn't start the thing until Wednesday evening, and it ran great in the last car, but it sat all winter outside, so acted like we had a head gasket leaking, so we decided to pull the intake, and we found that push rod broke off in half. The other half is still in the oil pan somewhere.
Somewhere. Likely in pieces, right?
We didn't find it.
Oh, man, that's always fun, right?
Yeah. I got lucky enough to have some people down there that were willing to help me tear it apart and put it back together.
So what did you actually do on site then with that engine? You sent me that picture that everything was all opened up. What did you do down there? Did you fish out pieces, or did you do a bit of a rebuild? What did you do there?
Personally, what I did was stood back and held tools for people. But
Right.
What happened was we pulled the intake and found that, so we sent my parents to go find some push rods. They had to drive to Kansas City.
Oh, my.
And we had the heads back on and the intake and one valve cover. When they got back, we hurried up and got it buttoned up. I actually looked afterwards. We had one intake bolt that wasn't even in it, but it seemed to last. So we're going to tear it apart when we get out of the car and make sure everything's good before we put it in the River City car.
Where's the car now?
It's in the shop.
Is there anything left?
I haven't lifted it up to look. I think the nose could maybe be straightened, but the back end's pretty rough.
Yeah, it looked like it was opened up pretty good. That heat was awesome. That street stock weld class, it was the first time that it was there. And boy, did you have a battle to come away with the win in that one. Just running through the top couple of finishers there. Jacob came away with a win over John Muse, who won the limited weld class last year. And then we had Jeremy Baker there in the third spot, and it wasn't Stuart Orth. It was his brother Ryan Orth behind him. And then it was the 185 machine, and I'm blanking on his name now. Shoot, there it is. Tyler Reed. Tyler Reed coming away there in the fifth spot. Stuart Orth was knocking on the door of the top five. What'd you think of that feature from your perspective?
They dropped the green flag, and a few guys went nuts. So I was trying to stay out of their way and kind of do my own thing. And there was that rollover right off the bat, two cars. Then I had one on top of me, and that T-Bird was all over everybody. It was a crazy heat.
I think it was Tylen Shem in the mid-'90s Crown Vic who he was there, man. I'll give him credit. He was there. He brought a knife to a gunfight in terms of what was allowed and what he had. He got his nose opened up early, and they just went after him so fast. And then he ended up kind of just a casualty, a victim of circumstance, if you will. That 72 Dominic Rodriguez was coming through there backwards, and the back of that squareback wagon was up in the air, caught the fender, and ended up flipping him over after the car was already shut down and the stick was broke off. That dude, I give him credit, though. He was there, and, a lot of people that weren't.
Yep, that's what it takes. I mean, these people, they're on county fairs, and to get into a big show, you're gonna show up and get it handed to you a few times before you start figuring out what you can do to make it better.
I hope he comes back. It'd be a good story just to see him last a little bit longer than he did, but I hope that he had fun. Was that feature fun for you? I mean, it certainly helps that you came out on the winning end of it, but man, it seems like you had to be exhausted when you were done.
Yeah, Well, I love chain cars, and that was more of a stock build.
Mm-hmm.
We run these mod cars, all these big shows, because that's what the main class is. But I have way more fun in chain cars, and that was kind of back to the roots of the county fair style.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about the last few minutes of that. You know, these are guys that you've run with, run against, and seen them find success all over the place, and now you're right down there in the middle of it. In the back of your mind, you know that you've got this engine that you really don't know how much you can trust it. Yet here you are knocking on the door of a pretty large scale win.
Yeah, we got down to I think the last 5 or 6 cars, and it seemed like it took forever. And then I think Jeremy Baker had a broken tie rod, and Ryan Orth was having some steering issues, and it seemed like forever. We finally got down to the 4 of us, and they got pushed against the wall there, and I kind of locked Jeremy in behind a dead car, and John got me on the left front corner really good, and at that point, my car didn't have many hits left, so I had to do what I could to try to end it.
When you had it ended there, I saw the official was telling you to back up and give daylight. You were pinned on another car, and you couldn't go any further. Had John shut it off at that point?
I hit John, and my shifter actually slipped into reverse. That's why it didn't go all the way to the wall, and I hit him again. And I've got it in reverse. The officials told me to back up, and I thought I lost reverse gears. And I watched the live stream afterwards. I hear Steve on there, he just happened to lose reverse here. But, no, I was stuck on that dead car, and come to find out, John broke his transmission there at the end. So if we would have got loose, I would have tried to give one more and see what happened. I'd have probably had a broken tranny too.
Hey, if you watch that back, before you go picking on Steve about losing reverse at an opportune time, we had a low angle shot.
I've seen it happen plenty times.
No, not even that. That's not where I was going with that. Not at all. We had a low angle shot, and we could see that you were stuck on the other car, and we talked about that. So we made sure that everybody knew that you weren't playing the game.
Yep.
However, if you did play the game, I would completely understand.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody tries to play a game, but that's a little bit too obvious at that point.
What's your summer going to look like?
I am going to get my River City car inside here in the next week and start stripping it. I run that May 1st out in Henry, Illinois, Toast Promotion Show. And then I've got my shows picking up for the fair season. I've got 8 shows I'm putting on myself. And then 1 show in Stanton, Nebraska, running a 2-man team show there, and then back to Blizzard Bash.
Jeepers. How, comparatively, how clean was the car that you ran for the street stock Weld class compared to other stuff that you've run?
My car was a rot box. It was a 74 Impala. The stock frame was rotted out in front of the rear wheels. I put a 71 frame under it. Had some sheet metal patching done to it. Had to trim on that just a little bit. But I've been kicking myself for the last 2 weeks thinking I should have took a Ford down there.
Really?
Yeah. It's been about 5 years since I ran an old iron, so I'm a little bit more comfortable in a Vic. But it worked out in the end. Trying to get a little bit of track experience with a big car for maybe November down there.
Sure. What are you taking to Toast Show?
I am taking a 90 Lincoln. It's a 80s and newer bone stock, so I've got a really clean 90 Lincoln sitting there. We got to get going on that one next.
And then for the fall, have you made a car choice at this point?
For Blizzard Bash?
Yeah.
Probably won't be an 03. We'll leave it at that.
All right. Fair enough. All right. I'll let you off easy. So we haven't even gotten to the other side of your Capital City Carnage. We talked about how busy it was with the engine problems and going out there and running in the street stock Weld class, picking up the win there. Jacob Prusman also has 448 promotions, which you alluded to. So he's out there making sure that he can get drivers to come to his shows this summer. But he's also got 448 designs. How much door wrap installation and roof sign delivery did you have to worry about while you were down there, in addition to the engine trouble?
I delivered 11 roof signs, and I shipped probably another 10 before I got there. I put side wraps on maybe 5 cars, and there was about 15 other guys that picked up stuff and put them on themselves.
Yeah. Were you supposed to install more than 5 cars worth, and they understood you just couldn't pull away?
There's nothing about installation, so if people start giving me crap, I try to do it, but it's no guarantee.
I see. Well, all the same, you're. I understand that your door wraps make the sides of the cars 15% harder. Is that true?
If it's good for business, I guess that's a yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's hard when you pull out on the track and about half the cars have your name on them too.
Right. I was kind of thinking about that. It's like, are you able to more quickly identify your friends on track because you recognize the roof signs?
I don't know if they're friends, but I try to take it easy for a little bit.
Right.
There at the end, Jeremy Baker had NLR all over his car. I was starting to get worried about him and John, but
right. It all panned out in the end, though. Coming away with the win, Jacob Prusman picking up the win in the street stock Weld division, presented by Derby Chase. I'm glad you got the chance to go back and check everything out online, and invite anybody at home that hasn't had a chance to live Capital City Carnage. Check it out. Jump on DerbyNation.tv. You can buy everything on demand at this point. So, looking like we're closing in on the top of the hour here. Anybody that you wanted to make mention of to help make sure the car got there?
Well, you put me on the spot here. You messaged me about 3 minutes before you asked me to be on here.
I did.
First off, I got to thank my parents. I got to thank my wife, my sister, my whole family. I mean, when we're gone, the wife's parents take care of the dog and stuff. I got to thank Dan Wells. He came over the night before and helped get the thing done. Nate Connect, Chance Langford, and Matt Erman's whole group down at Carnage for helping get the engine back together. And then thank all the people that build these parts and have brought Demolition Derby to what it is today.
That's awesome. I mean, Derby is a family, and they made sure that you were going to get back out there, and it turned into a win. I'm anxious to know what you find when you do get that thing taken apart.
Yep. Well, we'll see here in the next couple of weeks. I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Let us know how the season's going on the 448 promotions schedule, and of course, keep us updated on where we might see you next. If nothing else, we'll see you in the fall.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks, Jacob. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, take care.
There goes Jacob Prusman. Excited to have him pop in there for a few minutes. I think we've covered pretty much everything that we set out to this evening. Wanted to give everybody a chance to hear about this real quick before we log off for the evening. Unified Point Series online, 527 Unified Series. That will be back in action on the 21st of March. That's Bluegrass Bash. Then we're going to see Connorsville Spring Show in Connorsville, Indiana. That's the Indiana Swing kicking off in April. The 25th and 26th is Spring Explosion in Portland, Indiana. May 8th and 9th is Urban Destruction in Evansville. June the 20th is the Wayne County Fair in Richmond. And June 27th and 28th is Metal Mayhem. That is in Portland, Indiana as well. The point standings, there's an 11-way tie for first place right now. That's, of course, going to change a little bit here. Once we get a couple more of these shows in, it's going to really bunch up by the time we hit the Memorial Day with a bunch of shows here scheduled in the next several weeks. Brad Tussey, Andy Willis, Jordan Shepard, Kyle Poor, Luke Warland, Michael Kelly, Steven Sickles, Travis Pennick, Bo Lockwood, Jeremy Heinen, Kane Johnson, all sharing the top spot in those last several names. Sickles winning the SUV class in Florida, Travis Pennick winning the compact side of things, Bo Lockwood winning in those stock Imperials, the stock class with an Imperial, and then Jeremy Heinen and Kane Johnson winning the two-man extreme class, or the team show down there. They did not win the two-man extreme class because there wasn't one. So I think that's going to do it for us here. We've covered everything that we wanted to hit on tonight. We might try and cover a little bit more of the Capital City Carnage content next week when we get Brian back. Appreciate everybody tuning in, of course, and thanks for tuning in on Facebook Live with us for a little bit there. Shared some of that content of our interview with Justin Stevens. Talked to Jerrid Fisher. Talked to Jacob Prusman here through the course of our hour together. That is going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. We appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. We will see you again next Monday with episode 313. We'll see you then.
The Crash Course Live is presented by Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of May Mania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah, online at stirringdirtracing.com. Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel, and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.